My starting point when it comes to the consideration of any issue relating to free speech is my passionate belief that the second most precious thing in life is the right to express yourself freely.
In a recent interview you gave with the Irish Times, you said comedy's job is to offend, and it seems nowadays people are very careful about what they joke about. Do you worry about where comedy is going?
Not greatly, because it's a cyclical thing. You know, 1 minute, certain jokes or certain attitudes and outlooks are just out of fashion.
All right, folks, let's dive into the world of Rowan Atkinson, the comedy legend, the brilliant mastermind, and yes, the unforgettable Mr. Bean. This is the man who's perfected the art of making us laugh without speaking a single word. But beyond the laughs, he's also stepped into the ring on one of today's most heated debates. Free speech. Atkinson's perspective is a sharp, clever defense against the rising tide of cancel culture, and his bold insights might just challenge how you see censorship. So buckle up for a journey through his witty and unapologetic truths. And hey, real quick, if you're enjoying this content and want more insights like this, hit subscribe and help us reach these topics to a wider audience. Thank you for the support. Now let's jump back to the video.
It seems nowadays people are very careful about what they joke about. Do you worry about where comedy is going?
Not greatly, because it's a cyclical thing. 1 minute, certain jokes or certain attitudes and outlooks are just out of fashion. And in the end, the whole point of a joke is to entertain people. And if people are not entertained, then you haven't, fulfilled your brief.
Atkinson's outspoken stance against woke culture began gaining significant attention in the early 2010s. He publicly supported the UK government's reform of Section 5 of the Public Order Act in 2013, which aimed to safeguard free speech. He saw the clause that criminalized insulting speech as a dangerous overreach. To him, it wasn't just about comedians. It was about society's ability to tolerate different views and jokes that might offend people as part of open and healthy conversations. He argued the freedom to be inoffensive is no freedom at all. This concise yet powerful statement captures the essence of his perspective. For Atkinson, the right to offend is central to comedy's role in society. Without it, comedians cannot hold a mirror to society, expose its absurdities, and encourage introspection.
Out of fashion. And in the end, the whole point of a joke is to entertain people. And if people are not entertained, then you haven't, fulfilled your brief. And so I'm a great believer that we must have free expression. And in comedy, you must be able to make jokes about absolutely anything. I mean, the only question is you would be wise to choose a context in which it's going to be appreciated, because not all jokes suit all contexts. The joke you tell around a table in a restaurant with some friends is not necessarily something.
Atkinson has stated, "It does seem to be that the job of comedy is to offend, or at least to have the potential to offend, and it cannot be drained of that potential." Without this freedom, comedians can't make fun of society's problems or human absurdities. For example, Rowan's funny portrayals of characters like religious leaders, drunk people, or overly strict officials show this idea. His jokes were not just funny, they also made people think about serious issues in society.
Well, there's been quite a fight back around the world recently against the bullies and woke warriors trying to redefine free speech. And isn't it great when the bullies get some of their own back? Rowan Atkinson, the star of Blackadder and, of course, Mr. Bean, is the latest big name to condemn the rise of cancel culture. I love Mr. Bean, by the way. Atkinson compared these keyboard warriors to a medieval mob roaming the streets looking for someone to burn.
Atkinson has been equally vocal about the rise of cancel culture, which he sees as a byproduct of woke ideology. In a 2020 interview, he talked about the fear in the entertainment industry, where a single misstep can ruin someone's career. He thinks this kind of fear stops people from having creative and honest conversations. Atkinson stated, "Cancel culture is like a medieval mob looking for someone to burn." He fears that the constant scrutiny and swift condemnation of public figures leave little room for context or forgiveness. In his view, society has become overly punitive, focusing on individual missteps rather than fostering constructive discourse.
My starting point when it comes to the consideration of any issue relating to free speech is my passionate belief that the second most precious thing in life is the right to express yourself freely. The most precious thing in life, I think, is food in your mouth, and the third most precious is a roof over your head. But a fixture for me in the number 2 slot is free expression, just below the need to sustain life itself.
Atkinson's advocacy for free speech is not just theoretical, it is deeply personal. He credits the freedom to express himself as a comedian's as a driving force behind his success. From his early days on the BBC to his global recognition as Mr. Bean, Atkinson has relied on his ability to experiment, push boundaries, and sometimes make people uncomfortable. He explains, "My concern is not for myself, but for those more vulnerable because of their lower profile," referring to people without a platform. Atkinson's privileged position as a public figure affords him a degree of protection, but he worries about the broader societal implications of curbing free speech. Without robust dialogue, he fears, society risks becoming intellectually stagnant.
It becomes a case of either you're with us or you're against us. And if you're against us, you deserve to be cancelled. Gee, he's got that right, hasn't he? That's exactly how that mob behaves. You will only speak freely if it passes our definition of progressive opinion. What rot. Atkinson's been a regular campaigner in support of free speech and open debate. In 2005, he got stuck into hate speech laws in the British Parliament's Racial and Religious Hatred Bill. In 2009, he argued against the introduction of homophobic hate speech clauses into UK law. In 2012, he was strongly against insulting behaviour.
A key aspect of Atkinson's critique is the homogenization of thought that woke culture often demands. While inclusivity and sensitivity are laudable goals, Atkinson argues that they should not come at the expense of diverse perspectives or the ability to question prevailing narratives. In his words, inclusivity should not sacrifice diversity of thought. He believes that the current climate often conflates dissenting opinions with bigotry, creating an environment where people are afraid to speak their minds. For Atkinson, this undermines the very principles of open debate and progress that woke culture seeks to promote.
Even for those actions that were withdrawn, people were arrested, questioned, taken to court, and then released. That isn't a law working properly. That is censoriousness of the most intimidating kind, guaranteed to have, as Lord Deer says, a chilling effect on free expression and free protest.
Atkinson's perspective on offense is nuanced. He acknowledges that comedy will inevitably offend some people, but he insists that this should not be grounds for censorship. If a joke has an appreciative audience, no matter how small, then it's worthy and it deserves to be protected, he says. For Atkinson, the value of a joke lies in its ability to connect with an audience, not in its universal appeal. This principle has guided his comedic work, from Mr. Bean's slapstick humor to Blackadder's biting satire. Both characters challenge societal norms and highlight human folly in their ways.
Like the man arrested in Oxford for calling a police horse gay, or the teenager arrested for calling the Church of Scientology a cult, or the cafe owner arrested for displaying passages from the Bible on a TV screen. When I heard of some of these more ludicrous offences and charges, I remembered that I had been here before in a fictional context.
One of Atkinson's primary concerns is the diminishing role of satire in contemporary culture. Historically, satire has been a powerful tool for critiquing political and social issues. But Atkinson fears that the rise of political correctness is eroding this tradition. He points to his satirical sketches, such as a controversial performance in which he portrayed an Indian restaurant owner dealing with drunk patrons. While the sketch was well received at the time, he doubts it could be performed today without significant backlash. He argues that this reflects a growing intolerance for for satire's inherently provocative nature.
You make a joke, you make a television show, whatever it is, if people are offended, that's their problem. It's not yours. You've done your bit. If they don't want you to work for them again, then that's, that may become your problem, but you've done your bit.
Despite his concerns, Atkinson remains hopeful about comedy's ability to adapt and endure. He believes that humor is cyclical and that societal attitudes will eventually shift. Comedy's job is to entertain, and if people are not entertained, then the joke has failed, he says. However, he also emphasizes the need for comedians to remain steadfast in their commitment to free expression. Artists should never apologize for their art, he asserts. For Atkinson, this principle is non-negotiable.
As you may know this whole issue very well by saying, while arresting a protester for using threatening or abusive speech may, depending on the circumstances, be a proportionate response, we do not think that language or behavior that is merely insulting should ever be criminalized in this way. The clear problem with the outlawing of insult is that too many things can be interpreted as such. Criticism is easily construed as insult by certain parties.
What role should humor play in challenging societal norms? Can comedy remain a space for free expression in an age of heightened sensitivity? Share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more honest conversations about creativity, culture, and free expression.